Well, a new billboard went up in Tehran recently. It's a picture of American sailors with their heads bowed in shame as they're led ashore in Iran. It's there to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the humiliation of the U.S. Navy in the United States at the hands of Iranians in disputed waters. And it looks like the Iranians are determined to not forget that incident, and I think we should be determined to not forget it either. Hello there, paying members at BillWhittle.com. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your special members-only right angle on the new Iranian billboard, basically flogging the United States and trying to humiliate us with this picture of our Navy servicemen looking down at the ground. Scott, I can probably keep this one pretty quick, I think. This question, I think those days are coming to an end.
Yeah, I think you're right, too. And I think they should have come to an end a long time ago. I mean, let's just buy the worst case scenario and say that these sailors were in Iranian territorial waters and they were, either confused or not too bright or misbehaving or whatever the case may be. I know that some of them were disciplined after the fact. Let's just assume all of the worst, on these young men. Nevertheless, these are members of the U.S. military, and the President of the United States, who is the Commander-in-Chief, should have demanded their instant return with dignity and should never have countenanced their mistreatment and had our, obsequious Secretary of State over there, making statements about how gracious the Iranians were to our people. Well, maybe he should appear there in Tehran Square and be the guy who unveils this billboard and talks about how wonderful that was. I mean, John Kerry, of all people, the guy who single-handedly won the Vietnam War for us, should have been the guy.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
No. By the way, on a related note, this past week there was a big story about how he went back to that same river and met a guy who was involved in the battle that John Kerry was lionized for, and the medal for which he threw over the White House fence, apparently. But, this idea that the United States can allow its troops to be treated this way with impunity just encourages more violence and more indignities, more humiliation for our troops. And if you're a member of the U.S. military right now, I can't help but think you're breathing a sigh of relief and looking forward, hopefully, to this new administration, which may have a different view of American power around the world.
Scott, let's not forget that John Kerry has a lot of experience selling out Americans who happened to be in prison at the time under military command. Yeah. Steve, during the debates, Hillary Clinton brought up this issue about Donald Trump's reaction to it, and she said basically that Trump sounds like he would have gone to war on this issue, and he's genuinely, absolutely insane. That's pretty much the position she took. Do you agree?
No. We've had this conversation many times about Curtis LeMay when he was head of Strategic Air Command, say, peace is our profession, war is just something we do for kicks. You want to put the fear of God in the other guy. That actually lowers your chances of war. It doesn't increase it. And look, Secretary Mabus, Navy Secretary Mabus, has been just an absolute disaster. His primary concern, instead of war fighting, has been proper gender roles and alternative fuels and all the rest of the progressive bull crap that has led to lower morale, worse training, and worse discipline in our Navy. I'm pretty sure that before he goes out the door here on Friday, he's going to change the Navy's motto to "Hands up, don't shoot." It's a disgrace what he has done to what is really our first line of national defense. It's a crime. The first time Donald Trump thought of running for president, I don't know if you remember this or not, this would have been probably the fall of 1987. He was being interviewed, I think, I got to go way back in my memory here, by Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes, who still sometimes interviews him all these years later, 30 years later. And the issue of the day was, again, involving Iran, and what would he do if the Iranians were provoking us again, like they had been in the Persian Gulf, seizing ships and whatnot. And he said, I'd seize one of their oil platforms, and if they did it again, I'd seize another oil platform. And it was just a great segment, kind of a preview. I don't think much has changed about the man in the last 30 years. That said, to give you an idea what this administration is like, though, as it goes out the door here on Friday, today, Tuesday, Barack Obama took Ben Rhodes, the guy who sold the Iran deal to the American people, the man who bragged about lying about the Iran nuclear deal to try and sell it to the American people, was appointed by Barack Obama this morning to the United States Holocaust Council. How about that?
Incidents like the incident we saw last year that's being celebrated in Tehran are, in fact, the result of what Steve pointed out. They're a result of leadership from above. Barack Obama has basically gutted the military, and he didn't have to sink the aircraft carriers or scrap the airplanes. He produced a series of top-down policies that made it untenable and just simply unable for actual warfighters, actual military warriors, to stay in the military. He made it incompatible with their personal sense of honor and their personal sense of achievement and goals and destinations. We forced huge numbers of people out of the military who had won unbelievable experience at very, very high cost. Whether those people come back or whether some of them come back or not, I don't know. I do know one thing. The appointment of a guy whose name is Mad Dog Mattis, one of the, without question, the most colorful, the most aggressive, the most vocally pro-American, get back in your box kind of thing, step back across that line or you're going to regret it. The appointment of Mattis as defense secretary is not just good for the military. It's not just good for what he's going to do for morale. It's not just good for what he's going to do for procurement. It's not just good for what he's going to do to rebuild these incredible structures of ours. The best thing that a guy like Mad Dog Mattis does is he lets the Iranians know that they are just about out of time with this loser in almost exactly the same way that they realized that they were just about out of time with that last loser when they declared their war on the United States back in 1979. The days of Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama are about over, and pretty soon I think they're going to see a kind of a surprise that they're not going to like so much, because if you do not stop these little provocations, you get big provocations, and if you don't respond to those, then people like Iran, countries like Iran, think the same way that Osama bin Laden thought. America's a paper tiger, and all we have to do is just give it a little push, and down it goes. It's dangerous. Weakness is dangerous, and I think we're about to see the end of a lot of weakness in our armed forces, and it couldn't happen soon enough. Thanks again for your membership. Keeps the lights on here at billwhittle.com. We always love to hear back from what you have to say in the comments section, and we hope we're going to continue to fulfill your obligations. We've got a live show coming up. We're very excited about that, too. So for Steve Green, Scott Ott, and the rest of the little crew here at billwhittle.com, thanks again for your membership, and we'll see you next time.